A trembling nun declared, "The new pope will lead millions of souls into darkness." This was her testimony after experiencing clinical death and being brought before Jesus. In her near-death experience, she was shown horrifying truths about the church following the conclave of cardinals. God warned that the time of mercy is coming to an end, and he will return in eternal light. It may sound blasphemous, but I urge you to take a moment to listen to this story with an open heart, not to attack, but to awaken your own faith. A leader may be a light, but he can also become an instrument for the forces of darkness to rule. We only seek to bring truth on behalf of those too afraid to speak. Please, do not let false light blind you. So what did this nun witness that made her speak with such certainty? Is the new pope truly worthy to lead the church as so many have proclaimed? Stay with us through this story, because it may completely change your faith. My name is Jenny. I am 50 years old, a nun who has spent her entire life within the silence of the convent, a place where I found peace in prayer and in the presence of God. But on that fateful afternoon, an accident tore me from this world and hurled me into a series of terrifying visions that shook the very foundation of my faith. Today I share this story not for fame, but because of a divine mission, a mission that compels me to speak, even as my heart trembles with fear. Just days ago, news of the new pope reached our convent, a place secluded, yet not entirely cut off from the world. The sisters stirred with excitement upon hearing that white smoke had risen above St. Peter's Basilica, announcing the election of a new Holy Father, Pope Leo the 14th, the first American ever to sit upon the throne of St. Peter. Some of the sisters called it a sign of a new era, a miracle for the global church. But when I heard the news, something tightened in my chest. An American? Why him? I did not doubt the Holy Spirit, yet whispers stirred relentlessly in my mind. Is he truly the one chosen by God, or is this part of a plan we cannot yet see? I tried to dismiss the thought, telling myself that a nun like me should not judge. But every time I knelt to pray, a sense of unease crept in, as if a storm was coming, yet no one could see it on the horizon. My life before had been incredibly simple, yet filled with meaning. Each morning, as the first rays of dawn passed through the stained glass windows of our chapel, I would kneel at the altar, praying for the church and for wandering souls. I loved Jesus with all my heart, but in recent years, a quiet unrest had begun to grow inside me. The church, the house of truth and light, seemed to be swaying. Rumors of financial scandals, whispers of compromise with the world, and the silence of those who should have defended the doctrine troubled me deeply. I began to wonder, does the light of Christ still shine in these sacred places, or have we allowed the shadows to overtake us? That afternoon I was cleaning in the monastery basement, preparing for evening prayer. The old wooden staircase that led down had always made me tread carefully, but that day my mind was lost in thoughts about Pope Leo the 14th and the church. The image of the white smoke, the echoing bells, and the smile of the new pope on the small screen in our common room haunted me. I missed a step. A sharp, jarring sound rang out as my foot slipped off the stair. My body plunged downward, and my head slammed hard against the edge of the wooden beam. Pain erupted like fire, searing and sudden, but only for a moment. Then everything dissolved into darkness. But it wasn't the darkness of unconsciousness. It was a cold void, as if my soul had been torn from my body. I could no longer feel the cold stone floor beneath me, no longer hear the wind whispering through the monastery halls, no longer breathe. A strange chill surrounded me, not the chill of winter, but an emptiness so deep it pierced through me, as if life itself had been drained from the universe. My awareness remained sharp. My mind spun, my ears rang, and I knew I was no longer in this world. I was not falling, not floating, but being drawn into another dimension, a place that earthly language could never describe. At that moment I understood I had died, or at the very least, that my body was no longer functioning. Yet my soul lived on, and it was being carried by a force far greater than anything I could ever imagine. A whisper came not through sound, but like a stream of thought that pierced directly into my mind. "Jenny, come closer. You have been chosen to see the truth." I trembled. I did not know what awaited me, but I could feel a sacred weight pressing upon my spirit, a mission I could not turn away from. What I'm about to share is not meant to stir controversy or cast judgment, but to awaken. I have seen the depths of hell, the throne manipulated by darkness, and the eternal light of Jesus Christ. I have heard his voice, and he gave me a mission to warn his people before the window of mercy closes. The truth may be painful, but it is the only path that leads us through the darkness. If you're struggling with questions, just type "I'm reflecting on something" in the comments. Perhaps we or our faith community can help you find clarity. Remember, God is not offended by your questions. He is only heartbroken when we stay silent in the face of his warnings. The Eternal Bible Stories channel invites you to join our faith community by subscribing and leaving your name and city in the comments. We will lift your name before the Lord in prayer, walking this journey of faith together. If this story touches your heart, consider pressing the super thanks button, the heart icon below the video. Every gift you give is a candle lighting the path, helping us bring hope to thousands more. Now, we invite you to continue listening to Jenny's story. Darkness engulfed me so thick I felt it could suffocate my very soul. The monastery was gone, the wooden staircase vanished. All that remained was an endless void, cold and suffocating. A horrific stench like burning sulfur and rotting flesh invaded my awareness, even though I no longer had a nose to smell. I wanted to scream, but no voice came forth, only pure terror howling inside my mind. Then I heard them, the cries, agonizing wails like thousands of souls being torn apart in torment. The sound was unlike any human voice. It was a fusion of despair, regret, and rage without escape. I looked down, or rather, my consciousness was drawn downward, and I saw faint silhouettes or lights. They were not quite human, yet not entirely demonic, just souls twisted and deformed by their own choices. Images flashed before me like shards of broken glass, sharp and terrifying. I saw a man who once wore robes of power, now burning in the flames because he had sold the truth for fame and influence. A woman, her face grotesquely contorted by earthly pleasures, now screamed as those same lustful desires turned against her, tearing her apart. I wanted to turn away, but an invisible force held me in place, compelling me to witness the consequence of turning one's back on God. Suddenly, a gentle light pierced through the darkness. It was not blinding, but soft just enough to push back the horror. The angel Gabi appeared, majestic in form, yet his eyes full of compassion. "Jenny, you are seeing the abyss of truth," he said, his voice echoing like water flowing over stone. He reached out his hand, and I felt a strange comfort, though fear still clung to me like a second skin. Gabi guided me through the heartbreaking scenes. I saw souls who had once been shepherds, pastors who had led their flocks into darkness out of pride. They chose lies over the cross, Gabi explained, his voice heavy with sorrow. Hell is not where God punishes, it is where people imprison themselves when they reject the light. I wanted to ask why God would allow this, but Gabi seemed to read my thoughts. "God's love is freedom, Jenny," he said, his silver wings gently trembling. "But that freedom has a price, and this is the price of those who choose pleasure, power, and deceit." I bowed my head, my heart burdened with sorrow for the souls I had once prayed for. A new scene emerged, and I began to tremble. I saw a false throne glittering with light, yet emanating the breath of darkness. Figures in red robes, cardinals, I realized, were kneeling before it, but not in worship of God. Gabi held my hand, his voice turning stern. "These are the ones who twist the truth, preparing the way for a false shepherd clothed in white." A chill ran down my spine as I recalled the unease I had felt about the new Pope, Leo the 14th. The image of the white smoke and his smiling face on the monastery screen flashed across my mind. "Is it?" I whispered, but Gabi raised his hand to stop me. "Not yet, Jenny," he said. "You will see more, but first, let this pain carve itself into your heart." We passed through a river of fire where souls thrashed and cried out the name of the Lord, but it was too late. I saw people who had once been indifferent to faith, now burning in the very apathy they once clung to. A man screamed, "I didn't know." I didn't know, but Gabi shook his head. They knew, but they chose not to believe. I couldn't take it anymore. Invisible tears poured from my soul. "Why must I see this?" I asked, my voice breaking with pain. Gabi looked at me, his eyes like a tender flame. Because you are chosen to warn them, Jenny. The world is asleep, and time is running out. Suddenly the sea of fire vanished, replaced by an endless field of golden wheat. I could still faintly smell sulfur, but the space felt lighter, as if hell had only been the prelude. Gabi stood beside me, his voice deep and commanding. What you have seen is truth, but it is not the end. Be ready, for you will witness the throne manipulated and the light victorious. I nodded, though my heart still trembled. Hell was not just a place, it was a living warning about the consequences of our choices. I knew I could never return to an ordinary life, not after what I had seen. Gabi placed his hand on my shoulder, and a warm light surrounded me, carrying me onward into the next vision. As the light enveloped me, I felt a new strength rise within. I was no longer the fragile nun from the convent, I was now a witness to the truth. The screams still echoed in my mind, but I held tightly to my calling. Lead me, I whispered to Gabi, ready to face whatever awaited next. A radiant warmth enveloped my soul, washing away the acrid sulfur and tormented cries that lingered from the depths of hell. I felt weightless, as though drawn through a delicate veil where shadows dissolved into a sacred stillness. I stood within the grandeur of the Sistine chapel, its towering walls adorned with Michelangelo's frescoes, glowing faintly under a spectral light that seemed to pulse with unease. The air carried a heavy silence, as if the painted angels above held their breath in dread. Candlelight danced in brass holders, casting trembling shadows across rows of cardinals clad in crimson robes. Their faces bore the weight of the moment, some bowed in fervent prayer, others exchanging guarded glances that betrayed their inner turmoil. A faint hum of anticipation filled the sacred presence, commanding yet unsettling. This was Leo the 14th, the first American to ascend the throne of St. Peter, his face familiar from the flickering screens in our humble convent. His smile, once warm in distant broadcasts, now appeared sharp and calculated, his eyes gleaming with a confidence that felt devoid of divine grace. The robes he wore shimmered, but their light was unnatural, like polished steel reflecting a cold, hollow glow. My soul tightened, stirred by a memory of the false throne I had glimpsed in the abyss, its allure masking a sinister truth. Leo the 14th raised his hand, and the chapel fell into a profound silence, broken only by the labored breaths of the cardinals. His voice, smooth and resonant, filled the space like a hymn stripped of sacred warmth. My brothers, he began, we stand at the dawn of a new church, one that embraces all without judgment. Each word landed like a stone upon my soul, heavy with promises that echoed falsehood. He spoke of a church without the cross, without the weight of doctrine, a vision of tolerance that sounded sweet yet rang hollow. The cross, the cornerstone of salvation, was dismissed as an outdated relic, and my spirit recoiled at the audacity of his words. I longed to cry out, but my presence was ethereal, a silent witness to a truth being twisted before my eyes. An elderly cardinal, his hair as white as snow, gripped his rosary with trembling hands, his lips moving in silent prayer. His eyes flickered with defiance, but Leo the 14th's gaze, cold and unyielding, swept over him, and the old man's shoulders sagged under an invisible burden. The room seemed to shrink, as though the weight of deception pressed against the very walls of the sanctuary. A younger cardinal, his face flushed with unease, leaned toward his neighbor, whispering words I could not hear. Their exchanged glances spoke of doubt, yet none rose to challenge the new pope's proclamation. My soul churned with anguish, like a storm raging within, as I witnessed the seeds of betrayal taking root in this holiest of places. A gentle light bloomed beside me, and Gabriel appeared, his silver wings quivering in the oppressive air of the chapel. "Jenny," he said, his voice a blade cutting through the fog of lies, "you behold a shepherd who leads not to the Lord's pastures, but to the edge of the abyss." His words pierced my soul, confirming the dread that had haunted me since Leo the 14th's name first echoed in the convent. Gabriel pointed toward the Pope, and my gaze followed, catching a glimpse of a shadowy figure gliding behind him, its form indistinct yet menacing. The figure whispered into Leo the 14th's ear, words no mortal could hear, and a chill coursed through my essence, as if I had brushed against the void. The white robes of the Pope shimmered with the same false light I had seen in hell, a glittering facade that concealed a profound darkness. His promises of progress and unity flowed like honey, but they lacked the love and sacrifice of Christ's teachings. I recalled the nights spent in prayer, when whispers of a church gone astray had stirred fear in my heart. Now, standing in the Sistine chapel, that fear solidified into a stark reality, a betrayal unfolding before the eyes of heaven. Gabriel guided me to a corner of the chapel, where Michelangelo's The Last Judgment seemed to stir, its vivid figures pulsing with life. Images flashed before me, showing the faithful across the globe, from remote villages to sprawling cities, watching Leo the 14th's address on glowing screens. Their faces lit with hope, unaware that his vision of a new church opened doors to a spiritual void. "They are drawn to a church without salvation," Gabriel said, his voice trembling with sorrow, "a hollow sanctuary where the cross is forsaken." My soul wept invisible tears, mingling with the pain of countless unanswered prayers. I thought of my sisters in the convent, some of whom had hailed Leo the 14th as a beacon of renewal, blind to the abyss beneath his words. The deception was masterful, cloaked in the guise of compassion and progress, designed to seduce even the devout. Gabriel's eyes met mine, burning with a steady flame that anchored my wavering spirit. "This falsehood thrives because it mimics light," he said, "but you, Jenny, are called to unveil the truth hidden within." A solemn bell tolled, signaling the conclave's end, and Leo the 14th moved toward the balcony overlooking St. Peter's Square. I followed, my soul hovering above the sea of people below, their cheers rising like a tide to greet their new pope. Yet to me he was no shepherd, but a shadow casting a false light over millions of unsuspecting souls. The crowd waved banners, their voices unified in jubilation, but a whisper stirred deep within my mind, like a prophecy carved in eternity. "The false shepherd will lead astray," it said, "but the light of God will shine through those who hold fast." My soul trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of a mission I could no longer ignore. Gabriel's hand rested on my shoulder, his light steady and unyielding like a beacon in a storm. "You cannot halt this tide, Jenny," he said, his voice resonant with purpose, "but you can kindle a flame to guide the lost." I nodded, my resolve hardening as the cheers below faded into a distant roar. The Sistine Chapel, once a bastion of divine truth, now stood as the stage for a great deception. Yet within my soul, a spark of hope flickered, fueled by the certainty that God's light could pierce even the deepest darkness. With Gabriel's words echoing in my heart, I prepared to carry this truth forward, a solitary flame against the gathering shadows. St. Peter's Square unfolded before me, not as a distant vision, but as a pulsing reality, where I stood amidst a throng of countless souls, their breaths weaving into a fervent tide. The bells of the basilica tolled with majestic resonance, mingling with the ecstatic cheers that greeted Pope Leo the 14th, who stood aloft on the balcony, his arms outstretched in triumph. Yet the heat radiating from the crowd carried no divine warmth, only a feverish zeal that felt like worship of a hollow idol. My soul stirred uneasily, sensing a dissonance beneath the jubilation. The sun cast a golden glow upon Pope Leo the 14th, his white robes shimmering with an allure that seemed to captivate the masses. His eyes, however, were voids of cold calculation, surveying a sea of faces already ensnared by his presence. Banners fluttered in the air, emblazoned with slogans proclaiming new church, new hope and Leo the 14th, light of the age. My spirit recoiled, haunted by his words in the Sistine Chapel, words that sought to erase the cross and now spread like a plague across the square. Gabriel materialized beside me, his presence subdued, his silver wings flickering like faint embers in a gathering storm. "Jenny, behold the souls before you," he said, his voice a quiet blade slicing through the clamor of the crowd. He extended his hand, revealing delicate threads, thin as gossamer, entwining each person in the throng. These threads pulsed with a deceptive light, binding hearts to a faith that demanded no sacrifice, no reverence for God. A young woman stood nearby, her eyes alight with fervor, as she hoisted a banner high, yet the thread around her tightened, dimming the spark of her soul. An elderly man knelt before a statue of St. Peter, his rosary trembling in gnarled hands, but the thread warped his prayer, redirecting his devotion to Leo the 14th. The sight pierced my essence, like a wound that bled invisible sorrow. I longed to reach out, but my form was intangible, a silent witness to a theft of sacred truth. The crowd erupted into a hymn, their voices rising in unison, yet the song exalted not Christ, but the hollow ideals of the new church. Words like tolerance and freedom echoed endlessly, stripped of the cross's redemptive power, ringing false in my ears. A chill wind swept through the square, unnoticed by the enraptured masses, and my soul quaked as if grazed by the same threads that bound them. The air grew heavy, as though the very stones of the basilica mourned the betrayal unfolding. Gabriel led me through the teeming crowd to a corner where massive screens broadcasted Leo the XIV's speech, his image dominating the square and beyond. From Rome to distant villages, millions watched, their faces glowing with a hope that masked a creeping despair. The threads around them shimmered brighter, pulling souls toward a chasm cloaked in promises of peace. My heart ached, envisioning my sisters in the convent, some of whom had once hailed this pope as a divine herald. "His words are a serpent's whisper," Gabriel said, his eyes blazing with righteous fire. "They offer solace but sever the path to God, forging a faith that is no faith at all." His voice carried a weight that steadied my trembling spirit, urging me to see the depth of the deception. The screens flickered, and for a moment I glimpsed a shadow in Leo the XIV's eyes, a fleeting hint of the darkness steering his words. A group of youths stood nearby, their phones aglow as they streamed the speech, their voices buzzing with excitement for this progressive church. The threads around them tightened, their vibrant energy siphoned into a void I could not name. My soul wept, not with tears but with a silent lament for the innocence being stolen. I thought of the prayers we once shared in the convent, now at risk of being drowned by this tide of falsehood. Gabriel's hand rested on my shoulder, and a gentle strength flowed through me, like a stream quenching a parched land. "This deception is perilous because it wears beauty's mask," he said, his voice a solemn warning that anchored my resolve. "The words of Leo the XIV are chains disguised as guidon, and millions are ensnared." He gestured toward the balcony, where the Pope's silhouette seemed to loom larger, casting a shadow that stretched beyond the square. I lifted my gaze to the balcony, and a formless entity emerged behind Leo the XIV, its presence a dark miasma that whispered venom into his ear. The crowd remained oblivious, but its icy breath brushed my soul, a chilling echo of the abyss I had glimpsed in prior visions. My essence shuddered, as if standing at the edge of a precipice, yet a spark of defiance kindled within me. The entity's influence was palpable, a silent force weaving the threads that bound the faithful. "This is the fruit of forsaking truth," Gabriel said, his tone resolute, like a clarion call to battle. "Yet you, Jenny, are chosen to shatter these bonds with the light of God." His words ignited a flame in my soul, transforming anguish into a fierce determination. I met his gaze, my spirit steady despite the weight of the task before me. The square trembled, not with the earth shaking but with a sacred wind that rippled through the air, causing the invisible threads to quiver. A few souls in the crowd paused, their eyes searching the sky, as if sensing a truth beyond the Pope's allure. Gabriel took my hand, his touch a beacon guiding me through the vision's end. "These souls are why you were called," he said, his voice a promise etched in eternity. I stood amidst the multitude, my soul a solitary torch flickering in a sea of bound hearts. The cheers of the crowd faded, replaced by a quiet strength rising within me, as if God had forged a blade of truth for my hands. I whispered a vow, not to the air but to the divine was sustaining me. "I will not let them fall." I pledged, my mission now a fire that could not be quenched. St. Peter's Square dissolved into mist, but the weight of the vision lingered, a sacred burden I embraced with unwavering resolve. The threads of deception might bind the world, but I carried a light that could sever them. With Gabriel's words echoing in my heart, I prepared to face the trials ahead, a lone flame against an encroaching darkness. The fire of my mission, kindled in St. Peter's Square, still blazed within my soul, but the world around me darkened, as if a veil of iron had descended. A cold breath of ancient stone enveloped me, and I stood before a massive wooden door, its surface etched with cryptic patterns that seemed to writhe in the dim light. Hidden deep within a shadowy corridor of the Vatican, this portal exuded a silent menace, as though guarding secrets too heavy for the world above. My soul quivered, yet the weight of my purpose anchored me against the encroaching dread. Gabriel stood beside me, his silver wings casting faint glimmers that danced across the cracked stone walls, as if the very rocks wept for the truths they concealed. The door groaned open, releasing a dark mist that swirled with malevolent whispers, each word a shard of ice against my essence. I stepped across the threshold, my spirit trembling at the sight of a clandestine chamber, its walls adorned with ancient symbols that bore no resemblance to the cross. These markings pulsed with an eerie energy, evoking a forgotten era steeped in shadow. At the chamber's heart stood a stone table, where a circle of men in black robes gathered, their presence radiating a chilling authority. A large book rested on the table, its pages glowing with a sinister red light that seemed to breathe with malevolent intent. These were no cardinals, yet their eyes gleamed with a power that could sway the fates of millions. My soul recoiled, as if brushed by the edge of an abyss, sensing the unholy purpose that bound them. One man, his voice a guttural rumble from some unseen depth, chanted an incantation, and the book shuddered, as though summoning a force beyond mortal ken. The air grew thick, heavy with the weight of betrayal, and my spirit felt the pull of a darkness older than the stones around me. I stood frozen, a silent witness to a ritual that defiled the sanctity of the church. Gabriel's hand touched my shoulder, and a gentle warmth flowed through me, steadying the fear that coiled around my soul. "Jenny, you stand in the crucible where truth is warped," he said, his voice sharp as a blade cutting through the fog of deceit. "These men worship not God, but the throne of power, and they are the architects of Leo the 14th's ascent." His words pierced my essence, revealing the depth of a conspiracy that threatened the very soul of the church. I gazed at the book, and within its crimson glow, an image of Leo the 14th flickered, his familiar smile twisted into a grotesque mask of mass servitude. The vision confirmed a haunting truth, that even the Pope was but a marionette, his strings pulled by the shadowed hands in this chamber. My spirit churned with sorrow, not for myself, but for the faithful who trusted in a shepherd led astray. The chamber trembled, and a colossal shadow rose from the book, its formless mass coalescing into a presence that dwarfed the robed figures. Red eyes blazed within the darkness, sweeping over the men, who bowed in reverent submission, pledging allegiance to this entity. I recognized it as the same malevolence I had glimpsed behind Leo the 14th in the square, a force that wove deception into the heart of the church. My soul shivered, as if standing before the gates of hell itself. The weight of betrayal pressed upon me, like a stone crushing the breath from my spirit, yet I tightened my resolve, vowing to carry this truth to the world. The church, the sacred house of God, was being twisted by traitors, and I could not turn away from the call to expose their machinations. I memorized every detail, the symbols, the book, the shadow, each a piece of a puzzle I was destined to unravel. Gabriel guided me to a corner where an ancient mirror hung, its surface rippling like a disturbed pond. Within it, visions unfolded, cardinals accepting gold from the black-robed figures, clergy sealing secret pacts, and Leo the 14th proclaiming Church 2.0, while the shadow whispered its venom. The mirror revealed a web of corruption, spun over years, binding the faithful to a false gospel. My essence ached, envisioning the millions ensnared by this meticulously crafted lie. "They have forged a covenant with darkness," Gabriel said, his voice heavy with grief yet resolute as stone. "This is no mere rhetoric, Jenny, but a scheme rooted in ancient malice." His words stoked a fire within me, transforming sorrow into a fierce determination to confront this evil. The mirror's visions faded, but their truth burned in my soul, a beacon I could not ignore. A new image flickered in the mirror, showing countless believers, from St. Peter's Square to remote hamlets, bound by invisible cords that dulled. A woman, her face hauntingly like a sister from my convent, knelt before an icon of Leo the 14th of Lhasa. The sight was a blade to my heart, yet it sharpened my resolve, urging me to act as a herald of truth. The chamber quaked violently, and the black-robed figures lifted their gazes, as if sensing an intruder in their sanctum. The shadow turned, its crimson eyes locking onto mine, and a voice thundered in my mind, promising to crush any who defied its will. My soul stood firm not from bravery, but from a faith anchored in the unyielding light of God. Gabriel raised his hand, and a surge of silver radiance erupted, repelling the shadow's wrath and shielding me from its malice. We retreated to the corridor, the heavy door slamming shut, sealing the whispers within, yet the image of the red book lingered like a scar on my spirit. The cold stone walls seemed to close in, but a newfound strength pulsed through me, a gift from the divine. "They wield great power," Gabriel said, his eyes burning with an eternal flame that pierced the darkness. "But God's might is greater, and you, Jenny, must be ready for trials that will test your faith." His words were a clarion call, urging me to embrace the path ahead, no matter its perils. I nodded, my mission now a torch blazing in the night, unquenchable by fear. The corridor faded, and I found myself before a towering stone wall, etched with prophecies that shimmered under a faint, holy light. My hand brushed the stone, and words flared to life, written in fire, proclaiming that truth would liberate only those who dared to speak it. The weight of my calling settled upon me, heavy as a mountain, yet I welcomed it as a sacred burden. With Gabriel at my side, I stepped into the unknown, the echoes of the chamber fueling my resolve. The Vatican's secrets were a labyrinth of deceit, but I carried a light that could pierce its shadows. My soul, forged in this vision, was ready to face the trials ahead, a solitary flame against the darkness threatening God's church. The wall of prophecy dissolved, and I found myself amidst the frenetic pulse of a New York street, where skyscrapers loomed like defiant titans, challenging the heavens. The cacophony of car horns, hurried voices, and ceaseless motion assaulted my soul, a stark contrast to the solemn stillness of the Vatican's corridors. Neon lights bathed the city in a false radiance, yet a hollow emptiness lingered beneath the bustle, as if the divine had been banished from this glittering realm. My spirit wavered, unmoored by the chaos, yet resolute in the mission etched within me. Gabriel stood beside me, his silver wings barely discernible under the garish glow, his stern gaze piercing the city's facade like a blade through mist. In the distance, a towering billboard blazed with an image of Pope Leo the Fourteenth, his smile gleaming beside the words, "The Pope of Peace, welcome to New York." The sight stirred a chill in my essence, a reminder of the deception I had witnessed in St. Peter's Square. My soul tightened, as if bracing against a storm of worldly allure. We entered a luxurious hotel, its marble floors reflecting the opulence of a glass-walled conference room where a summit unfolded. Politicians in tailored suits and businessmen adorned with gold watches filled the space, their faces alight with ambition rather than faith. At the center sat Pope Leo the Fourteenth, his white robes a stark contrast to the crowd, yet his smile carried a sheen of compromise, devoid of the shepherd's sacred grace. My spirit recoiled, sensing a betrayal cloaked in the trappings of power. A man rose, his voice smooth as velvet, offering billions to fund a modern church aligned with progress. His words dripped with promise, but they chilled my soul, like a contract inked in shadow. The room buzzed with approval, yet I saw the light within their hearts flicker, dimmed by a mist of greed and deception. My essence ached, as if grazed by the edge of a profane bargain. A massive screen flickered to life, broadcasting Leo the Fourteenth's speech at the United Nations, his voice polished and resonant. The Church must embrace all, from diverse identities to boundless expressions of love, he declared, each word a polished gem that lacked the fire of God's truth. The audience erupted in applause, but my soul mourned, sensing the cross's redemptive power being cast aside. The weight of his words pressed upon me, like a stone upon my heart, heavy with sorrow for the faithful led astray. Gabriel led me from New York, and the scene shifted to a sleek conference room in Washington, D.C., where journalists and lawmakers encircled Leo the Fourteenth. A congresswoman with piercing eyes handed him a folder, her whisper promising political alliances in exchange for the church's endorsement of progressive laws. He accepted the folder, his grip firm, as if clutching a weapon forged in compromise. My spirit trembled, feeling the sacred foundations of doctrine crack under the weight of earthly ambition. Gabriel turned to me, his eyes blazing like torches in a darkened world. "Jenny, you witnessed the seduction of worldly power," he said, his voice a low rumble that cut through the room's clamor. "Leo the Fourteenth bends to these pressures, forsaking God's divine order for the applause of men." His words ignited a fire within me, transforming grief into a steely resolve to confront this betrayal. I looked closer, and the truth seared my soul. These leaders sought not God's will but the church as a pawn for profit and control. A businessman raised a glass, his laughter ringing as he spoke of markets opened by a Reformed church. My essence churned, like a river roiled by storm, yet I memorized each face, each word, determined to bear witness to this treachery. The shadow I had seen before trailed Leo the 14th, its whispers weaving a web of lies around the room. A journalist scribbled furiously, her notes heralding Leo the 14th as the centerpiece of a global narrative of progress. Her words, though eloquent, were hollow, devoid of the cross's saving grace. And my soul wept for the millions who would read her story. I clenched my fists, not in despair, but in a fierce vow to sever the cords of deception binding the faithful. The room pulsed with ambition, yet a faint undercurrent of unease lingered, as if some sensed the falsehood beneath the sheen. Gabriel guided me to a vast window overlooking Washington's streets, where banners proclaiming Church 2.0 fluttered in the breeze. Crowds gathered below, waving rainbow flags and images of Leo the 14th, their cheers a hymn to a false prophet of progress. The invisible cords, shimmering with artificial light, bound their souls just as they had in St. Peter's Square. My heart burned, not with anguish, but with a resolve as unyielding as stone, to free them from this illusion. A vision flashed in my mind, sent by Gabriel, showing churches worldwide where sermons now shunned repentance and the cross. A young priest, his voice faltering, preached of limitless love, but the sanctuary's light dimmed, swallowed by a creeping darkness. The sight was a wound to my soul, yet it sharpened my purpose, urging me to protect the faith I held dear. I thought of my convent, its simple prayers now at risk, and a flame of determination roared within me. Gabriel's voice broke through, heavy as granite yet piercing as light. When God's order is forsaken, the church becomes a shadow of itself, he said, his words a solemn warning. Doctrine weakened is a lamp extinguished, leaving souls to wander in darkness. His gaze steadied me, anchoring my spirit against the tide of worldly temptation. I turned to him, my eyes unwavering, as if forged in the fire of divine truth. How can I fight this tide? I asked, my voice steady despite the weight of my calling. Hold fast to the truth, Jenny, even when the world rejects you, Gabriel replied, his radiance a beacon in the storm. His words were a mantle I donned, heavy yet empowering, preparing me for the battles ahead. The conference room faded, and I stood atop a hill overlooking Washington, its lights twinkling like deceptive stars below. Gabriel handed me a small book, its pages glowing with a gentle light, a miniature testament of truth. I opened it, and a single line blazed forth, proclaiming that truth was an eternal flame, unquenchable by falsehood. I clutched the book, its weight a mountain I embraced, a torch to guide my path. The city trembled, not with physical quakes, but with a sacred wind that stirred the air, as if God's call rippled through the world. A few souls below lifted their gazes, their eyes searching beyond Leo the 14th's promises, as if sensing a higher truth. My mission crystallized, a blade of light to cut through the darkness of deception. With the book in hand, I felt ready to face the next trial, my soul a solitary flame against a world swayed by temptation. Gabriel nodded, his presence a silent vow to guide me through the shadows. Together we stepped into a new realm, where the truth would test my faith, yet I carried a light that could not be dimmed. The book of light in my hands dissolved, and golden wheat fields stretched endlessly before me, their stalks swaying under a vast Midwestern sky, singing a silent hymn of creation. A gentle breeze carried the scent of earth and harvest, grounding my soul after the chaos of worldly cities. Gabriel appeared beside me, his silver wings shimmering faintly in the sunlight, his eyes deep with contemplation, as if tracing the spiritual currents of this land. My spirit stirred, sensing a quiet truth hidden beneath the golden expanse. Jenny, this is America's heart, Gabriel said, his voice resonant yet tinged with sorrow. Here the first seeds of doubt about an American pope took root, long before Leo the 14th's rise. I gazed across the fields, and a vision unfolded. Farmers gathered in a weathered wooden church, their murmurs heavy with unease about a pope from their ambitious land. Their faces, etched with the toil of honest labor, bore a skepticism that pierced my soul, as if they sensed a fracture in the sacred. The wheat fields faded, and I stood within a dimly lit office in Washington, D.C., where politicians in crisp suits huddled around a polished conference table. A man with a voice cold as steel outlined a scheme to leverage Leo the XIV, aiming to amplify America's influence through a reimagined church. Secret documents, stacked like bricks of betrayal, detailed funds and pressures to mold the Vatican's voice. My essence recoiled as if brushed by a venomous wind, feeling the church reduced to a pawn in a game of dominion. The familiar shadow drifted through the room, its formless presence whispering into the ears of the schemer, just as it had to Leo the XIV. My soul shuddered, recognizing the same darkness that haunted the Vatican's secret chambers and St. Peter's Square. The air grew heavy, as though the walls themselves mourned the desecration of sacred trust. I stood silent, a witness to a conspiracy that sought to reshape faith into a tool of power. A screen flared to life, displaying a social media post by Donald Trump, its bold text proclaiming an American pope a foolish notion, unfit for the Vatican's ancient mantle. Comments flooded the platform, a storm of mockery, conspiracy theories, and accusations of a plot to Americanize the church. The vitriol spread like wildfire, from rural towns to global cities, sowing division among the faithful. My spirit trembled, not in defense of Leo, but in grief for the unity of God's people fractured by doubt. Gabriel's gaze met mine, his eyes blazing like a flame through the fog of chaos. "This division is the fruit of Leo the XIV's surrender to temptation," he said, his voice steady as a cornerstone. "Pride and worldly allure have led him astray, dimming the church's light." His words pierced my soul, kindling a resolve to expose the roots of this growing schism. The scene shifted to a bustling television studio in New York, where commentators clashed over Leo the XIV's legacy. One hailed him as a visionary, while another scoffed that an American could never grasp the Vatican's sacred traditions. A screen displayed Leo the XIV, his confident smile touting Church 2.0, yet his eyes were hollow, as if drained by the shadow's influence. My heart ached, like a river swollen with sorrow, as I memorized each word, each gesture, to understand the depth of his fall. We moved to a crowded square in London, where protesters waved banners decrying an American pope, their chants echoing across continents, from Brazil to Africa. Reports flooded in, revealing faithful communities questioning Leo the XIV's motives, their trust eroded by whispers of foreign influence. The global unrest weighed upon my soul, like a stone pressing against my spirit, yet it fueled my determination to uncover the truth. The shadow's reach extended far beyond America, weaving doubt into the fabric of faith. Gabriel's voice cut through the clamor, deep as a tolling bell. Doubt spreads not only from American soil, but from Leo the XIV's failure to walk in God's light, he said. His pride has opened the door to division, leaving souls vulnerable to deception. His words were a clarion call, urging me to carry the truth into the heart of this storm. A vision bloomed in my mind, vivid as if Gabriel had painted it, showing Leo the XIV in a secluded Vatican chamber, accepting a thick envelope from an American envoy. His hands trembled, yet he opened it, the shadow looming larger, whispering promises of glory and influence. The image seared my soul, a testament to a shepherd who chose power over divine calling. My spirit burned, not with despair, but with a fierce vow to reveal this betrayal. "He could have led with righteousness," Gabriel said, his eyes heavy with grief yet unyielding as stone. Instead, he embraced the shadow's path, forsaking the church's sacred charge. The weight of his words settled upon me, like a mantle I was destined to bear. I clenched my fists, not in anguish, but to channel my sorrow into a resolve as strong as iron. The scene shifted to a small Midwestern church, its wooden walls aglow with candlelight, where believers knelt in fervent prayer for guidance about Leo the XIV. A young girl, her cheeks streaked with tears, whispered that the new church felt empty, devoid of the cross's truth. The candles flickered, fragile yet steadfast, a beacon of faith amidst the tempest of doubt. My soul warmed, as if touched by a breeze of hope, seeing that God's light still burned in humble hearts. Gabriel stood beside me, his radiance gentle yet unwavering, like a lighthouse piercing the night. "This doubt reveals a hunger for truth," he said, his voice a prophecy etched in eternity. "You, Jenny, must carry the light to where darkness seeks to hide it." His words anchored my spirit, clarifying my mission despite its daunting weight. The church faded, and I stood on a red dirt path winding through golden wheat fields, a simple wooden cross rising at its end. A beam of light shone from the cross, enveloping me, and a voice, not Gabriel's but God's, resonated within my soul, commanding me to stand firm. The words were a river of strength, flowing through me, fortifying my resolve to face the trials ahead. I knelt, not in fear but in gratitude, feeling faith's power surge like a tide. The path trembled softly, as if the earth whispered its own sacred prophecy, urging me forward. I rose, my eyes steady, the cross's light a guide through the gathering shadows. The weight of my calling pressed upon me, heavy as a mountain, yet it was a burden I embraced with unwavering conviction. Gabriel nodded, his presence a silent vow to walk beside me through the darkness. The field stretched endlessly before us, a reminder that truth's flame could pierce even the deepest deception. I stepped forward, the cross behind me, my soul a solitary torch ready to confront the schemes yet to be revealed. The red dirt road and its cross dissolved, and I found myself in a narrow Boston alley, where dim street lights cast a feeble glow on weathered brick walls. A small stone church stood before me, its wooden doors creaking open as a young priest, Leo the 14th in his early years, emerged, his eyes alight with a fervent faith. Gabriel appeared beside me, his silver wings shimmering through the mist, his gaze heavy with sorrow, as if mourning a destiny already written. My soul stirred, sensing the purity of a man not yet burdened by the weight of ambition. "Jenny, behold the path of this man," Gabriel said, his voice a solemn whisper echoing through the night. From God's light he strayed into the shadows of his own desires. I followed the young priest into the church, where he knelt before the altar, his hands trembling as they traced the Bible's worn pages. His voice, warm as a hearth, preached to the poor, offering comfort to weary souls, and my spirit swelled with empathy, like a river touching parched earth. The scene shifted, and I saw Leo the 14th, now a respected priest, entering a grand New York mansion where politicians and tycoons greeted him with raised glasses. His smile wavered, a flicker of unease betraying his heart, as if torn between the cross and the allure of influence. A man with a gold-pinned suit leaned close, his whisper promising advancement for cooperation with powerful allies. My essence ached, like a wound gently bleeding, as I witnessed the first cracks in his sacred resolve. Time flowed like a restless stream, and I saw Leo the 14th, now a bishop, seated in an opulent office, his desk littered with thick envelopes from unseen donors. Gone were the fervent prayers of his youth. His hours were consumed by calls with benefactors, his voice polished but stripped of its former warmth. The shadow, faint yet growing, hovered behind him, whispering promises of grandeur that dimmed the light in his soul. My spirit quivered, as if watching a candle flicker in a gathering storm, its flame teetering on the edge of extinction. Gabriel led me to a rainy night in Rome, where Leo the 14th, now a cardinal, stood alone in a shadowed chamber, staring through a rain-streaked window. A dusty Bible lay untouched on his desk, overshadowed by an invitation to an elite Vatican gala. "He has turned from God's call," Gabriel said, his voice crashing like waves against unyielding stone. My soul mourned, heavy with the weight of a faith forsaken for the fleeting glow of worldly acclaim. The scene changed, and I saw Leo the 14th at a lavish banquet, his laughter ringing alongside tycoons, yet his eyes were voids, as if his spirit had been caged. A woman in a diamond-studded gown offered him a ring, etched with an arcane symbol, and he slipped it on without pause, sealing a silent pact. The shadow loomed larger, its crimson eyes glinting in the darkness, and a chill pierced my essence, as if its gaze had brushed against me. My heart throbbed, like a drum echoing loss, urging me to etch every detail into my memory. Within the Vatican's hidden depths, I saw Leo the 14th in a secret chamber, signing documents alongside the black-robed figures I had glimpsed before. No longer the humble priest of Boston, he was a man consumed, his hands trembling as he bound himself to their dark covenant. The shadow's presence was palpable, its whispers weaving a tapestry of ambition that smothered his soul. My spirit recoiled, as if standing at the edge of an abyss, yet I vowed to carry this truth to the world. "Ambition has ensnared his heart," Gabriel said, his eyes blazing through the veil of deceit. His betrayal began with the first step away from God's light. His words were a blade, cutting through my sorrow to reveal the urgency of my mission. I stood silent, my soul a vessel for the pain of a church led astray by one who once knew the divine. Reflecting on Leo the XIV's journey, from a small church to halls of power, a flicker of compassion stirred within me, like a breeze across barren sands. He had once loved the Lord, his faith a beacon for the lost, yet each compromise had drawn him closer to the void. The memory of my convent, where sisters prayed with unyielding devotion, kindled a fire in my soul, not to condemn, but to safeguard the truth. My resolve hardened, like stone forged in divine flame, ready to confront the darkness he had embraced. Gabriel guided me to a quiet chapel, where candlelight danced on a painting of Christ crucified, its somber beauty a stark contrast to the opulence I had witnessed. "The fall of Leo the XIV is a caution," Gabriel said, his voice gentle yet firm as iron. "Ambition leads astray, but God's truth remains an eternal guide." His words anchored my spirit, a lighthouse amidst the tempest of betrayal. I nodded, the weight of my mission vast as a mountain, yet radiant as a torch that could not be quenched. The chapel's stillness enveloped me, a reminder that faith could endure even the deepest corruption. My soul pulsed with purpose, ready to bear the light of truth into the gathering shadows. The chapel faded, and I stood on a jagged cliff overlooking a black ocean, its waves roaring like the cries of forsaken souls. A solitary star gleamed above the horizon, and a whisper, divine and unyielding, resonated within me, proclaiming that truth was light and I its bearer. The voice filled my essence, like a river nourishing a wasteland, fortifying my resolve for the trials ahead. I gripped my purpose, steady as the star's faint glow, unbowed by the darkness below. The cliff trembled, as if the earth itself echoed the divine call, urging me to press forward. Gabriel stood beside me, his presence a silent vow to guide me through the perils to come. My soul, forged in the vision of Leo's fall, burned with a clarity that no shadow could dim. The ocean's roar softened, and I felt the strength of God's truth surge through me, like a tide lifting a weary vessel. I stepped toward the unknown, the star above my guide, ready to face the schemes yet to unfold. The weight of my calling was immense, yet it was a mantle I wore with unwavering faith. With Gabriel at my side, I moved into the darkness, my soul a solitary flame piercing the night. The path ahead was fraught with trials, but the whisper of truth sustained me, a beacon no deception could extinguish. I walked forward, the echoes of Leo's fall a warning, my mission a vow to restore the light to God's church. The cliff and its black ocean vanished, and I stood within a subterranean chamber beneath the Vatican, where flickering torches cast eerie shadows on stone walls carved with ancient symbols, like curses etched by forgotten hands. The air was thick, oppressive, as if the darkness itself exhaled a malevolent breath, coiling an icy tendril around my soul. Gabriel stood beside me, his silver wings dulled by the chamber's weight, his eyes sharp with sorrow, as if bearing witness to a tragedy long foretold. My spirit quaked, yet the fire of my mission held me steadfast against the suffocating gloom. "Jenny, here the seeds of betrayal were sown," Gabriel said, his voice a mournful toll, like a bell heralding a funeral. I turned to the chamber's heart, where Leo the XIV, then a cardinal, stood alone before a circle etched into the stone floor, glowing with a sinister blood-red light. A towering, formless entity rose from the circle, its crimson eyes blazing like eternal embers, radiating a power that chilled my essence. My soul recoiled, as if grazed by the edge of an abyss, trembling at the sight of a man confronting hell's own herald. The entity's voice, deep and venomous, reverberated through the chamber, promising the throne of Peter in exchange for a covenant. "Accept my terms and no power will deny you," it hissed, each word a serpent slithering across my spirit. Leo the XIV, his face pale yet alight with ambition, knelt, his trembling hands accepting a black scroll from the entity's shadowy grasp. My heart throbbed, like a wound pulsing with grief, as I witnessed the moment faith was traded for power. The scroll unfurled, revealing a list of cardinals, their secrets and sins laid bare, a tool to bend the conclave to his will. "With this, your throne is assured," the entity snarled, its voice a blade carving through the sacred air. I felt a coldness pierce my soul, as if the chamber's stones wept for the betrayal unfolding before them. My resolve tightened, urging me to memorize every detail, every word, to bear witness to this unholy pact. The entity extended its invisible arms, and a vision materialized, millions bowing to Leo the 14th as God's light faded across the earth. Church 2.0 will be my triumph, it roared, proclaiming a faith stripped of the cross, repentance, and divine truth. Leo the 14th nodded, his lips sealed, his eyes hollow, as if his soul had been bartered for a crown of shadows. My spirit surged with anguish, like a storm battering a fragile shore, compelling me to carry this truth to the world. Gabriel's hand rested on my shoulder, his touch a faint flame piercing the chamber's oppressive darkness. "This is the zenith of betrayal," he said, his gaze a sword slicing through the veil of deceit. "Leo the 14th has forsaken not only the church, but the very light of God." His words anchored my trembling soul, forging my sorrow into a steely determination to confront this covenant. The chamber quaked, and the entity turned, its blazing red eyes locking onto me, as if sensing an intruder in its domain. "Those who defy me will be crushed," it thundered, its voice 1,000 daggers tearing through the air. Gabriel raised his hand, and a surge of silver light erupted, repelling the entity's wrath, yet its power pressed against me, like a tidal wave poised to engulf all hope. I clenched my resolve, my faith in God an unyielding anchor, refusing to yield to the darkness. The scene shifted, and I saw Leo the 14th exiting the chamber, the black scroll concealed within his robes, his eyes cold, stripped of the warmth of the Boston priest he once was. A vision of the conclave emerged, cardinals casting votes in the Sistine chapel, their faces marked by unease, whispers of coercion rippling through the sacred hall. The shadow glided among them, an invisible puppeteer pulling strings, and my soul ached like a blade piercing the church's heart. I stood silent, etching the scene into my memory, a witness to the manipulation that crowned a false shepherd. Gabriel led me to a corner where a stone slab bore an ancient inscription, warning that a covenant with darkness would forfeit the light forever. "This pact is the root of all deception," he said, his voice heavy with grief yet resolute as root as stone. "Yet God's light surpasses all, and you, Jenny, are chosen to restore it." His words ignited a fire within me, a beacon to guide my mission through the gathering shadows. The chamber faded, and I found myself in a blazing red desert under a sky choked with blackened clouds, where a radiant cross burned defiantly amidst the desolation. A voice, not Gabriel's but divine, thundered from the cross, proclaiming that truth was aflame and I its bearer. The words surged through me, like a river reviving a barren land, fortifying my spirit for the trials ahead. I knelt, my soul awash with gratitude, feeling the cross's light as a shield against the darkness. The desert trembled, as if the earth itself echoed the divine proclamation, urging me to rise and press forward. Gabriel stood beside me, his presence a silent vow to guide me through the perils to come. My mission burned within me, a torch unquenched by the weight of the covenant I had witnessed. I rose, my eyes fixed on the cross, ready to face the schemes yet to unfold. The blackened clouds parted, revealing a single star, its light a promise that truth could pierce even the deepest deception. I felt God's strength flow through me, like a tide lifting a weary soul, steadying my resolve against the darkness. The desert's heat pressed against me, yet my spirit remained cool, anchored by the divine voice that had spoken. With the cross's radiance behind me, I stepped into the unknown, my soul a solitary flame cutting through the night. The memory of Leo the 14th's covenant weighed upon me, a warning of ambition's peril, yet it fueled my determination to restore the church's light. Gabriel's silver wings glinted faintly, a reminder that I was not alone in this sacred fight. The desert stretched endlessly before me, its red sands a testament to the trials that awaited. I gripped my purpose, as unyielding as the star above, knowing the path ahead would test my faith to its core. Yet the divine whisper sustained me, a beacon no shadow could extinguish. I walked forward, the cross's light a guide, my mission a vow to shatter the covenant with darkness. The echoes of the chamber lingered, a solemn reminder of the cost of betrayal, but my soul burned with hope, ready to bring truth to a world ensnared by lies. With Gabriel at my side, I moved toward the next revelation, my heart a vessel for God's eternal flame. The blazing red desert and its radiant cross dissolved, and I found myself enveloped in an infinite expanse of pure light, as if heaven's breath had woven a tapestry of divine radiance. No ground anchored my feet, no sky framed the horizon, only a gentle yet overwhelming glow that melted every fear within my soul. Gabriel stood beside me, his silver wings bowed in reverence, his eyes shimmering with awe, as if standing in the presence of eternity itself. My spirit trembled, not from dread, but from the overwhelming love that pulsed through the boundless light. "Jenny, open your heart," Gabriel whispered, his voice a soft melody woven into the divine symphony. "Jesus, the Savior, comes to you now." The light intensified, and from its heart, Jesus emerged, his white robe shimmering like a constellation of stars, his presence a beacon of unyielding authority and boundless compassion. His eyes, deep with love, held a power that pierced through all deception, and the wounds on his hands and feet glowed with golden light, eternal marks of the cross's triumph. I fell to my knees, my soul quaking, not in fear but under the weight of a love so vast it washed through me like a river cleansing a barren land. His smile was a dawn breaking over my spirit, and his voice resonated, gentle as a breeze yet mighty as rolling thunder. "Jenny, you are chosen to bear my truth to a world shrouded in lies." My heart swelled, like a flame kindled in the darkness, overwhelmed by the sacred charge entrusted to me. Jesus raised his hand, and a vision materialized within the light, showing Leo the 14th on the throne of Peter, a towering shadow looming behind him, orchestrating his every word. "This man, chosen by darkness, leads my church into falsehood," Jesus said, his voice heavy with sorrow yet resolute as stone. "My mercy wanes, and the signs of my return are unfolding across the earth." My soul shivered, as if time itself bowed beneath the gravity of his words, sensing the nearness of divine judgment. He gestured to the endless expanse, and visions flashed before me, stars cascading like tears, the sun dimming in a mournful sky, and a blazing cross illuminating the heavens, heralding his return. "When darkness engulfs the nations and truth is twisted, my light will shine unquenched," he declared, his gaze a fire that burned away all illusion. "Only the faithful will see the sign and stand unwavering." My spirit quaked, like a leaf in a sacred wind, awed by the mantle of responsibility he placed upon me. Drawing closer, Jesus' presence enveloped me, his love a warm flame soothing every scar within my soul. "You must proclaim the truth of Leo the 14th and his Church 2.0, he said, his voice a divine summons no heart could refuse. "Those who heed you will become beacons, guiding the lost back to my embrace." My resolve surged like a river breaking through stone, ready to carry his message despite its weight. Another vision unfolded, revealing millions across the globe, from humble villages to sprawling cities, bound by the invisible cords of Leo the 14th's deception. Yet a few souls lifted their gazes, their eyes glinting with hope, their prayers a faint but unyielding light amidst the darkness. "These are my faithful, my torches," Jesus said, his radiance illuminating the expanse, as if igniting the world with divine fire. My anguish transformed into determination, like a spark bursting into flame, urging me to reach those steadfast hearts. Jesus placed his hand on my forehead, and a divine power coursed through me, like the river of life nourishing a desolate wasteland. "The hour of my return is unknown, yet it draws near," he said, his voice ringing like a bell through the corridors of time. "When darkness claims victory, my eternal light will shatter every chain." My soul glowed, as if a star had kindled within me, anchored by the promise of his ultimate triumph. The light trembled, and a final vision appeared, a radiant book, larger than the one Gabriel once gave me, its pages aglow with a brilliant white fire. "This is my word," Jesus said, and the book opened, golden letters proclaiming that truth would liberate, and the faithful would behold his glory. I gripped my purpose, like a sword forged in divine flame, ready to wield it against the shadows. His smile enveloped me, a vow that I would never walk alone. The infinite light softened, and I stood on a verdant hill beneath a clouded sky, where a simple wooden cross rose, steadfast against the gathering storm. Gabriel stood beside me, his eyes steady, as if fortified by the divine encounter we had shared. "You have beheld the eternal light," he said, his voice calm yet brimming with hope. My spirit pulsed, like a torch newly lit, eager to carry this radiance into the world. Gazing down from the hill, I saw flickers of light in the distance, the faithful scattered like stars, their prayers a quiet defiance against Leo the XIV's lies. "These souls await the truth you bear," Gabriel said, his words a gentle wind fanning the flame within me. The weight of my mission pressed upon me, vast as a mountain, yet it was a burden I embraced with unwavering faith. My soul burned, ready to ignite the darkness with the truth of Christ. A soft breeze carried a divine whisper, echoing the promise that God was ever with me. The clouds above parted, revealing a single star, its light a reminder that truth could pierce even the deepest deception. I felt the strength of Jesus' presence linger, like a river sustaining my spirit through the trials ahead. My resolve was unyielding, a beacon no shadow could dim. I stepped down the hill, the wooden cross behind me, its quiet strength a guide through the gathering shadows. The flickers of light below called to me, souls yearning for the truth I carried, and my heart answered with a vow to arson. Gabriel's presence was a silent assurance, his silver wings a faint glow in the twilight. The path ahead was fraught with peril, yet I walked forward, my soul a solitary flame kindled by the presence of the Lord. The hill's gentle slope gave way to a winding trail, each step a testament to the divine charge I bore. The memory of Jesus' words burned within me, a fire no deception could quench, urging me to confront the darkness of Leo the XIV. I clutched the truth, like a torch held high, ready to face the trials that awaited. With every breath, I felt the promise of his return, a hope that steadied my heart against the coming storm. The verdant hill and its steadfast cross faded, and I awoke on the narrow bed in my convent, where morning sunlight spilled through the window, painting the stone floor with golden warmth. My soul still pulsed with the eternal light of Jesus, yet the truth about Leo the XIV weighed upon me, heavy as a mountain forged in divine fire. Gabriel was absent, but his voice lingered in my spirit, urging me to carry the light into a world shrouded in deception. I rose, my heart ablaze with purpose, ready to fulfill the sacred mission entrusted to me by the Lord. Stepping into the convent courtyard, I found the sisters bowed in prayer, their faces radiant with simple faith, like candles flickering against a gathering storm. I shared the visions I had witnessed, the Vatican's dark chamber, Leo the XIV's unholy covenant, and Jesus' warning of his imminent return. "We must proclaim the truth," I declared, my voice quivering yet firm, like a wind sweeping through a barren valley. Their eyes gleamed with resolve, like stars piercing the twilight, affirming their commitment to stand with me. I penned a letter to churches worldwide, calling the faithful to embrace holiness and prepare for the Lord's coming. "When mercy's hour ends, light will blaze for 5 minutes, and the trumpet of victory will herald his return," I wrote, my words a beacon for weary souls. I envisioned that moment, a sky alight with glory, a radiant cross in the heavens, and steadfast believers unshaken amidst the chaos. My spirit soared like a river bursting through arid lands, propelled by the hope of divine triumph. Traveling to a rural church, I addressed a gathering of the faithful, their eyes wide with both fear and anticipation as I revealed Leo the XIV's betrayal. "The church will tremble, but those who cling to Christ will shine as torches," I warned, my voice steady as granite. An elderly woman grasped my hand, confessing her doubts about Church 2.0, her words kindling a spark of strength within me, like a flame catching dry tinder. I urged them to pray, spread the truth, and live by God's word, even if the world scorned their faith. The image of Jesus bloomed in my mind, his eyes brimming with love and authority, reminding me that his light outshines all darkness. Across the globe, from African plains to Asian cities, believers began echoing my message, their letters and prayers weaving a tapestry of defiance against deception. These faithful souls, like scattered embers, joined into a blazing torch, illuminating the world with truth. My heart burned, not with pain, but with a resolve as sharp as a sword forged in divine flame. In a bustling square, hundreds gathered, hoisting crosses and Bibles, their hymns rising with fervent faith, like a chorus defying the night. I spoke of Leo the XIV's covenant, the shadow's influence, and the Lord's promise that light would prevail. Prepare your hearts for the 5 minutes of light, when the trumpet will break every chain, I proclaimed, my voice resounding like a call from the heavens. The crowd's unified amen thundered through me, awakening my soul with renewed vigor. A young priest approached, his eyes alight with conviction, declaring he had rejected Church 2.0 to preach the untainted truth. He offered me a worn Bible, its faded cover a testament to unwavering devotion, and I clasped it tightly, feeling God's strength surge through me like a river nourishing a parched desert. We are the Lord's torches, I told him, and his nod sealed our shared vow to stand against the coming tempest. My spirit glowed, fortified by the unity of those who chose faith over falsehood. Visions of the Church's turmoil flashed before me, congregations divided, cardinals clashing, and Leo the XIV's followers striving to smother the truth. Yet the faithful persisted, their prayers rising like lighthouses piercing a stormy sea, unyielding in their devotion. The darkness is fierce, but the Lord is ever with us, I whispered, my soul anchored like a rock amidst the waves. I sent forth countless letters, each a seed of faith, trusting they would take root in hearts hungry for divine truth. Returning to the convent under a starlit sky, I knelt before the altar, the presence of Jesus enveloping me, warm as a flame kindling my spirit. I prayed for strength to endure the trials ahead, my heart open to the divine guidance that had led me thus far. A gentle voice echoed within, assuring me that I was chosen, its words a balm to my weary soul. I rose, my eyes burning with purpose, ready to face the challenges that sought to dim God's light. I called to all who would listen, urging them to inscribe amen upon their hearts and act with urgency, praying, sharing truth, and living in holiness. I envisioned the day of the Lord's return, when light would erupt for 5 minutes, the trumpet's call shattering the chains of darkness. Be the Lord's torch, I declared, my voice echoing like a heavenly summons, reaching far beyond the convent's walls. My soul pulsed with conviction, a beacon no deception could extinguish. The convent's quiet sanctuary faded, and I stood in a vision of a world trembling, yet dotted with flickers of light, the faithful standing firm against the shadow of Church 2.0. Their prayers wove a network of hope, like stars forming a constellation of divine promise. I felt the weight of my mission, vast as an ocean, yet it was a mantle I bore with unwavering faith. My heart vowed to unite these torches, forging a fire that would burn through the lies of Leo the 14th. Stepping into the world, I carried the worn Bible, its pages a shield against the gathering darkness. The memory of Jesus' radiant presence fueled my resolve, like a river sustaining a weary traveler. I saw the faithful in distant lands, their voices rising in harmony, a chorus of truth that no shadow could silence. My spirit soared, ready to ignite the world with the light of Christ's coming. The path ahead stretched into shadow, yet the flickers of light guided me, each a soul awakened by the truth I shared. Gabriel's absence was felt, but his words echoed, a reminder that the eternal light was my strength. I walked forward, the Bible clasped to my heart, my mission a flame that burned brighter with every step. The world awaited, and I was ready to carry the sacred truth to its farthest corners. The convent's bell tolled softly, a call to action that resonated within my soul. I envisioned the 5 minutes of light, the moment when the faithful would stand as one, their torches blazing in defiance of darkness. My resolve was unyielding, like a rock rooted in divine promise, prepared to face the trials of Leo the 14th's deception. With every breath, I carried the hope of Christ's return, a fire no storm could quench. Jenny's letter has come to an end, but the warning remains. The year 2025 will demand a decision. Every believer will be faced with a choice, comfort or conviction, compromise or consecration, the crowd or the cross. You can no longer hide behind religion. You can no longer depend on fame or politics. Jesus made it clear to me those who will shine in 2025 are the ones who bow low right now. So I ask you, are you willing to obey even when it costs you? Are you willing to speak the truth when it's not welcomed? Are you willing to leave the world behind to step into your divine assignment? If you feel the prompting of the Holy Spirit, consider clicking the super thanks button, the heart icon below this video, and sending a gift to support us. Whether small or large, every act of generosity is remembered in the kingdom of God. Your support helps us bring light, warning and faith to the lost, reaching from remote villages to bustling cities. God bless you.